Hello, everybody. So I'm glad that everybody's here. We're starting a new webinar series about youth media, and I'm thrilled that we have Larisa um, Ozeryansky doing the first one to present her work that you'll hear about it. The series is basically talking about different affordances and challenges to youth media in different contexts and different ways. We're going to have, in a month from now, a presentation from Tom Flint, and more information will come in the newsletter. So without further ado, Larisa, I'll let you to lead the presentation. Please, everybody, share who you are, where you're coming from, joining us in the chat so we know who we're talking to. Larisa, take it away.
Okay. Hello, my name is Larisa Ozeryansky. I'm a PhD candidate at University of Washington, but I'm living in Norway right now as a Fulbright Scholar. It's a one-year research grant. And part of the proposal, my original proposal for this grant, is this project I am going to present to you. Here I am affiliated with the University of Oslo and the Norwegian Institute of Public Health. But this project is very much independent. And so any potential feedback or sources of potential collaboration is very much appreciated. And I've been working, mostly my time here has been working to develop partnerships, and I'll talk about that in the presentation. So this presentation is about the concept of belonging and nature. So I'm exploring those concepts and how they influence or how they're experienced by refugees in Norway. And I'm using participatory arts-based research, PABR. That has been applied widely before, but I haven't seen it applied as much with refugees, especially not looking at psychosocial health. And that's some of the ways that this project is unique. So these are the three project components, the themes, which are belonging, identity, and sense of place. And this is specifically for newly resettled young adult refugees in Norway. The methodology, as I mentioned, is this participatory arts-based research. So this project is using storytelling and filmmaking in the form of a workshop and practicing that filmmaking as well, as a medium, not just for data collection, but also a mutual benefits co-creation of research. So this accomplishes some like ethical concerns that research is, instead of having a researcher and a subject, it's a co-creation, like a union of people who are the subject and telling their own story. So I'm really excited to explore this aspect of the project. And then what I'm calling a mediating factor here, but could be considered another theme, is the role of nature. So how can time spent in nature influence those experiences I mentioned, belonging, identity, and sense of place for newly resettled refugees? So I'm going to get much more into details, and I hope that you have questions, and so we'll explore everything. So the premise behind this project is that last year I did a survey for refugees from Ukraine online, and I did follow-up interviews, long-form interviews. And this is a picture from the website from that project. And I've written the first article and have outlined the second article for my dissertation based on that research. So I was interested in health of refugees, their health experiences, their decision-making related to health, challenges. But in the survey and in the interview, what came out was really a lot of more psychosocial concepts of health, like loneliness, belonging, social exclusion. So one example I have here is to the question, what ongoing or chronic health issues do you have? Select all that apply. Almost every one of the 100+ respondents chose other, and they wrote things like what I put here in this box. They considered this to be their health issues: loneliness, desire to cry, feeling like no one wants them where they've now resettled, missing home. And I personally found this really, really affecting, that this is what people consider to be the issues that they're facing. And it's not what researchers who are exploring health or medical professionals generally would consider a health issue. And I think, you know, in academia, especially from the medical anthropology lens, it's very interesting and it's very critical to consider what the people experiencing the issue consider their issue to be. So I wanted to explore that more. And just two really solid quotes, I think, on what belonging is, because this is a really open-ended, vague concept. And I've been asked a lot to define it for my project. But another thing I hope the project can do is explore what that means to the people who are experiencing it themselves. So some ways that it's been written about in academia is it's been called embodied belonging. And that quote on the left is from a really powerful article series of 10 articles on embodied belonging, none of them working specifically with refugees. Again, that's one way this project is unique, but with different people who experience this in different ways. So I'm just going to read it to you. This quote says that embodied belonging is a fruitful analytical heuristic for scholars in medical and psychological anthropology to help us gain a more nuanced understanding of the entanglements of the political, social, and affective dimensions of belonging and their effects on health, illness, and healing. That embodied belonging reveals how displacement, exclusion, and marginalization can cause existential and health-related ruptures in people's lives and bodies, and how affected people in the struggle for re-emplacement or reintegration may regain health and sustain their well-being. So if in your mind, or I feel like I need to clarify, some people might not think of belonging as a health issue, but it truly is. And this is an academic perspective on all the ways that a feeling of belonging or not can just cause a ripple effect in your life. And then the quote on the left, feeling a sense of belonging or not is a concept of fundamental importance to people's lives. So being legally, morally, or socially recognized as belonging or not truly has the power to change lives, to make communities and collectives, to bring together and separate in the most intimate, loving, accepting, exclusionary, or violent ways. And I really think that these two quotes capture an essence of what I want to explore academically in this project. Also, one of the themes that I mentioned that this project will explore is nature as a site for intervention. So this is why Norway is this amazing setting for this project, because Norway already has cultural values around nature that are unique in the world. They have a special word in Norwegian called friluftsliv, which means like free movement in nature. And it's recognized here that to go on a walk in the woods is sort of a top activity one could do. So Norway has many government-sponsored and privately run nature activities specifically for refugees. And as someone who studies refugee programs and interventions and data, I haven't seen anything like this in other places. And so that's why I think this context is really special. So I've found so far here nature-based activities for refugees specifically out of asylum centers in Norway, the Norwegian Trekking Association, which is a national, very active organization, youth organizations, Red Cross initiatives, municipality resettlement integration programs, and then all kinds of private and school-based organizations. So there's actually a lot going on here. So there's already a place for this. And then separately, there's tons of literature on the benefits of time and physical activity in nature to support well-being. It's a very well-accepted concept. It seems quite obvious, but there's nothing that's been written about that I've seen that's specific for refugees, not in academic studies. I've read articles about some of these programs that I mentioned on the left, specifically in Norway, a couple in Sweden, but none from an academic perspective on all the potential benefits or just the scope of what that could mean. So as you can see here in this list, the range is wide for academic studies, for the benefits of nature for children, for people with different mental health issues or learning disabilities, prisoners, cancer patients, college students, but not for refugees. So the timeline and structure of this project that's happening now, which I'm trying to lead, is that I arrived in Norway in July, and my contract is until June, though I'm hoping to extend it. So in the fall, so what I've done the past 6 months basically is try to understand the landscape, try to find partnerships and collaborations for filmmakers to lead the workshop or other forms of involvement. I've done a lot of presentations at conferences, media conferences with Yanti in Romania, and at the Rotterdam Erasmus conference this year, which was also media education focused, but specifically for immigrants. And I've just tried to seek a lot of feedback in the early stages of this project so that when we have participants, it's a really solidly formed project. And I've been searching for grants. So until now, I have found some partners that are really great. And one of the best, most exciting partnerships is the host facility, which I'll talk about, which has given a 50% discount, and we have rented that facility for this project. Right now, which I'm calling spring, but in Norway is very much winter, I am continuing the grant and funding and partnership search. The more, the better, and I definitely need more. A development of the recruitment materials, the design, publication, and presentations. So, for example, this right now on Media Ed Forum, and future opportunities for feedback and connection. And then the planned next step is the selection of participants, which we've created a application and recruitment form for. And then the future is the actual workshop, which will happen in summer 2024. So I imagine there could be 1 to 2 informational icebreaker meetings, but then the main workshop is July 8th to 13th. It's a 1-week residential filmmaking workshop. At the end, there will be a film screening from the short films made by the participants or co-creators. And afterwards, there will be some post-production for a meta film, which is the filming of not just what they made, their short films, but also the workshop in its entirety. This is a screenshot of the unpublished recruitment page on the Media Education Lab website. So you can see here that the cost is free, that the eligibility right now, though it may change, is participants 18 to 22 years old who arrived to Norway with a refugee status before the age of 18 within the last few years. So the reasons behind that is that we're getting people who were very much in an identity formation stage of their life when they arrived as people who were going to newly resettle, to start their lives anew in some ways. And then we have here the link to apply, and one of the requirements you can see above that link is there's a requirement to answer several questions so we can understand the participants' perspectives on concepts like belonging, and to submit a 5-minute video about what belonging means to them. And on the bottom of the screen, you can see the project partners, so Media Education Lab, Oslo Met, which is a local university here. They have a migration and minority health research group, which is interested in collaborating. So meeting with them next week. I would love your feedback on ways to discuss what a collaboration could look like with an academic research group. My University of Washington, where I come from, Census Media Forum, which is another partnership I've made, which is a Norwegian social impact, youth-focused media group. And Soligan Fjellstøya, which I'll talk about more, and that is our host facility, which gave the very generous discount. They have wilderness guides on staff, which are included in the rental of the facility, and they will guide the time in nature, which is really exciting. Here is our draft schedule of the project. So you can see on, it's 1 week, July 8th to 13th. On Monday, we arrive. We have a nature-based excursion. This special facility has their own mapped trails, caves, an extensive network of nature experiences that are all curated for the participants, and we'll have the whole facility privately to ourselves. For the next 4 days of the project, there will be media skill sessions in the morning and a psychosocial support session. So during those times, we will work on technical skills based on the Media Ed Forum curriculum, the Media Hive. So there'll be technical like camera work, audio work, and editing for the participants to learn. And then in the psychosocial support sessions, what I imagine is building up those themes of belonging, identity, and sense of place as thematic prompts to explore in the later filming after lunch. So you can see here, every day after lunch, it says skill practice session, nature-based excursion. So these are these guided times in nature, like a hike, but maybe it's something else. Maybe it's a certain type of walk with education. Maybe it's learning about gear. Maybe it's going into the caves, as mentioned, where the participants will practice their film skills, and this will be the content that they will later edit into their short films. In the evening, there's social activities, and then when we come back to Oslo on Saturday, the final day, there will be the film screening with facilitated dialogue with whomever comes to the film screening. So that will be family, friends of the participants, and it will be made public as well. These are some pictures from this beautiful facility. So we're really, really lucky. I met recently with the facility director. This facility is not just a beautiful cabin with trails and nature. It's specifically designed to mediate nature experiences for student groups and other groups such as yoga retreats or meditation retreats. So the staff all have special training, like the wilderness guides, as teachers and connectors to nature. And they're just really excited to support us. So we feel really fortunate about that. This is the planned output of the project. So number one, obviously the participant short films. These are things that the participants will make, they will show, and that's what they will gain skills through. Number two is the meta film of the entire workshop. I hope that will be submitted to film festivals, and specifically that will showcase the potential that this kind of curriculum and program has to bring people together, to teach people about nature, to explore research concepts such as belonging or otherwise. So that is another one. Number three is the academic article. So that is sort of part and parcel with my PhD process and the dissertation, but beyond that as well. So the first article that I imagine I'd like to write from this is exploring PABR, participatory arts-based research, as a methodology specifically for refugee research. That's something I've written about in my first article for my dissertation, that survey-based work or interview-based work can have the goals of the researcher in mind or otherwise miss some really important sociocultural context. So using the perspective of the person who's experiencing whatever is being researched, so the refugee in this case, having them lead the research provides a much more authentic perspective on the issue. And I would like to write about the effectiveness or the experience of using PABR as a way of doing that. The second academic article will be an analysis of the qualitative content of the study themes, belonging, identity, and sense of place. And so I will do qualitative text analysis on the transcripts from the short films, the transcripts from the meta films, the transcripts from the facilitated film screening discussion, and then field notes and photos throughout the whole thing, sort of a visual anthropology analysis as well. So I would consider all of that my content from which I can do a text and visual analysis on to explore what those themes mean for the participants and their range. Finally, another academic article on the role of nature in refugee psychosocial support. That could be specifically in nature in Norway, or it could be about the potential of using this as an integration method, or both. And number four would complement that. That's a complementary survey research with nature-based organizations which support refugees here in Norway. So to understand the role of nature as a cultural value, specifically in the Scandinavian and Norwegian contexts, and that would look like me interviewing nature activity service providers and facilities and just asking them basic questions about what have they done. I've heard a lot of it has stopped. So to find out if it stopped, why? Was there a lack of interest or participation? Was there obstacles such as funding? That's something I'm interested in. And what people view as the value in this, because it's so unique that it's happening here. So I hope that you can see that there's a lot of potential output of this project across a wide range of academia and public-facing, visually powerful mediums. For people who are from a more a stronger academic context, I have just one slide on theory here. I think that this is important to include, not just since I'm working on my PhD, but also this project fits so well into these theories, and I feel good about that. So to explore belonging, identity, and the participatory aspect of this research methodology, I am accessing grounded theory, also informed grounded theory. So this theory says that a qualitative research methodology that attempts to unravel the meanings of people's interactions, their social actions, and their experiences grounded in their own interpretations or explanations is like this right way of doing research, or this theory suggests this is the way to do research and this is the way to explore these themes. And that's what our project is definitely doing. And then in the nature context, these are more general. Salutogenesis is a theory that says that research could, instead of focusing on problems, could focus on people's potential for sustaining health and well-being, these positive ways that we can maintain health. So this research study looking at art expression, storytelling expression, filmmaking, and being in nature as positive ways of being healthy, psychosocial health, is meeting the salutogenesis theory. And then the biophilia hypothesis just says that people have an affinity for nature. People like being in nature. This is a positive, meaningful experience. And so there's some sub-theories like attention restoration theory and stress reduction theory. And just as they sound, they explain why people benefit from being in nature. So these are things I will reference in my academic writing. Some outstanding challenges, mainly funding. So I have a budget with an estimate of 100,000 kroner or 10,000 US dollars. But I've also collected in-kind donations. That is free equipment use by Norsensus Media, the Norwegian media company. I have a volunteer cinematographer, which is wonderful, and the discounted facility. So we got about 4,500 euro in-kind donation, so 50% discount on the facility, which is really great. And then I've been looking the whole time, as I mentioned, for partnerships or collaborators, but from the beginning I said I couldn't promise payment. Though I'm applying for grants and would love to provide a stipend, I'm just a PhD student myself. I don't have money at this point to give out, though I would love to find it. So what I've secured so far is the primary workshop facilitator, the cinematographer for the metafilm, wilderness guides, which come with the host facility and have special training. So that could have been a really big expense, which is included in the facility, and it's very meaningful. And then a local technical media advisor to the project, which is the director of Norsensus Media, who's been super generous with his time. And he recently helped submit a grant, a local grant, which had to be submitted through an institution or organization rather than an individual. So he's providing that local expertise. And I think, it's hard to put a number on that value, but it's very important. And what I would still like to find for this project is 1 to 2 more workshop facilitators, people who have the technical film skills, such as for helping teach editing, for example, and maybe a social program lead, like the evening social programs. And I have some ideas for that. I have local friends who are artists and musicians, so maybe something along those lines, but that's not really the priority. The priority is the workshop facilitators. So to find that, I've reached out to different people I know in these kinds of communities, skill communities. I've posted in Facebook groups, but it seems to be that everyone wants to be paid, understandably. So that's where I'm at. That is my presentation. If you would like to follow up with me by email, or I also have my WhatsApp, you can scan the QR code on the screen. I would love if you reached out with ideas, and I also would love to open it up now for discussion and questions. And I can go back to any slide as well if you want. And I'll just end the slideshow for now, but I can represent it if you want to look at a specific. So do you just see my face now?
No, you need to
oh yeah, stop sharing.
Yeah.
All right. There we go.
So thank you, Larisa.
Thank you.
So for those who joined, please introduce yourself in the chat so we know like who we have here. Thank you for Emily, Tanya, Rihan, Katie, and Katrina who shared, so that we know who is in the call. The idea here is really to brainstorm and give feedback. Larisa have been working for a long time on this, so as you can see, it's well articulated. We presented it in so many places. But we would love to hear feedback, and also as we plan it for 4 months from now, from your expertise, we would invite questions, discussion, thoughts that you have. So this is basically an open discussion. So you can use the chat or unmute yourself, and let's start the discussion.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, that was amazing. I'm struck by the fact that world events with Ukraine and Russia and the culture in Norway around nature, as you mentioned, really kind of make this a moment for this project. And part of why I joined this call is I live in the greater Boston area, and we have a lot of Latin American refugees, more and more coming all the time, who at this point, many of them are sleeping at the airport or in hotels because Massachusetts has run out of emergency housing, like many states in the US. And so I'm just watching this with ideas of trying to figure out where this will be applicable in future contexts. And I just am curious if your work with refugees in the past in other areas sort of informs the way you're doing things now, or if what you're doing now is giving you ideas that you think will be more broadly applicable to refugees from other places going to other places.
Yeah, I think it's applicable in the future for programs. I'm interested in working programmatically, and I came before the PhD from 4 years at the CDC doing programmatic and research intervention work related to HIV. I was like a HIV specialist for about 8 years with Peace Corps and then CDC.
Wow.
And
Where was Corps?
I was in Peace Corps in Kyrgyzstan.
Oh, wow.
And with CDC, I was based in Southern Africa for most of the 4 years, but also did a lot of work in Cambodia. And I've done a lot of global health work besides that. And in all of these contexts, I've felt really strongly that that the people who were experiencing the issue that was, supposedly being addressed really weren't included in the process. And that was one of the main reasons I wanted to get a PhD, was to spend time thinking about that and the way that I worked in to impact that and to make more sustainable change and more ethical change. So I think this kind of project can help introduce these types of more interdisciplinary, unique, and participatory structures into future programs, rather than just having researchers and other people who don't necessarily experience the issue design programs without the people involved. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to accomplish with this and set it as an example. And that's something that I think the metafilm, as well as obviously academic published articles and journals, could accomplish, is sharing this up for future programs. And this can be applied anywhere.
Right.
I think that's the whole point. Even though the nature context is unique in Norway, the whole point is that it's part of human nature to receive benefit from spending time in it. So it's just a unique context for the project to start. But I could definitely imagine, of course, funding isn't always an issue, but I could definitely imagine in your context that this kind of thing would be a beautiful way to help people find a sense of belonging or comfortability or connection in their new place of resettlement.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that this kind of research could potentially show the benefit, and that's where funding can come from, is when you have evidence to show direct benefit. Otherwise, it's just like, it sounds good, but when you have more published things to reference in future grant applications, hopefully it will strengthen them.
Right, right.
Yeah, Tom, you can just talk. Hi.
Hi. Yeah, Larissa, great presentation. We've exchanged just a couple of emails in the last week or so, so it's great to hear more about your work. It's fascinating on so many levels. I'm wondering, in regards to the overarching theme of belonging, what you're exploring through this kind of experiment, what thought have you given to what is actually going to happen in terms of the collaboration during the actual filmmaking experience? That's kind of what my background is in as an educator, is really focusing on the co-creative aspects. I know you used that word at the beginning of the presentation, co-creative, but what do you expect will come out of that with the refugees working together as they put together their films, and also doing that within that context of the gorgeous natural scenery in Norway?
Well, maybe that's something that you could share with me about what you have seen happen, because I can't say what I can expect. I mean, I hope it's positive. I imagine like a super kumbaya, like wonderful friendship situation, but I don't know. And I don't know who will sign up for this project yet, where they'll be from. And I think that those dynamics will be, it's important to consider them sensitively. And so any advice in advance, because I haven't done this before, would be helpful.
Can you specify, because I don't think you talked about the, I think initially it was about Ukrainian refugees, but now it's open up. Can you talk about the participants and the recruitment? What are your thoughts, so we have a better understanding of who's going to participate?
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, I think it should just be as open-ended as possible, and then we'll see where we get applications from. So my plan for sharing the recruitment page, which I posted that screenshot of, so the link and maybe QR codes, is with local agencies that already work with people who are have a refugee status. I have a contact who is a resettlement officer, and so he could share it through his network he offered, and to just see who we get. So originally, yes, I was thinking it would be Ukrainians, and I was working with, or I had met with the person who runs the Ukrainian Association of Norway, but limiting it to one group of people started to feel like somehow like ethically a bit odd, and I didn't want to be exclusionary. So that seems to like kind of counteract the whole point of the program. So we said that they should have at least an intermediate or functional level of English. But if not, there's like, it says in accommodations. If not, please say what you can speak and we'll do our best to accommodate you. So just like with me not defining belonging, I'm trying not to, from the start, define or exclude anyone and then see what happens.
And so your idea, you have like, because like in Norway, I don't know how many people here, I'm not familiar with the refugee like status in Norway. So obviously there is people from Ukraine, but there's also people from Syria, from Afghanistan.
There's a lot of Iraqi Kurds, and those are the main groups. Syrians. I originally wanted to study actually Syrians in Norway, because there was a lot of Syrians. There's 40,000 Syrians who came in the last 10 years or less so that's a big change in the population who came to Norway in the last 10 years. But then when the war in Ukraine started, then they started accepting them, and Norway proposed to accept 100,000 Ukrainian refugees, though right now they're also around 40,000. So that the landscape is very rapidly changing here in terms of the population. Originally, the main origin of refugees to Norway was from Pakistan and Somalia. And in the 70s, Norway accepted, I don't know the number, but many, many Somalians. In fact, 10% of Oslo are African origin Muslims. So, it's really not what I imagined when I kind of had a stereotypical view of what Oslo would look like, but I walk around here and it's quite diverse in some ways. So I don't know who will want to do this kind of project, but and it's people who came recently. So there aren't so many Somalis who are coming recently, though I have met people, but their war is not at its peak as it was before when they came in large groups. So I meet a lot of people from Eritrea, but I know that in numbers wise, that's quite the minority, because there are a lot of refugees from Eritrea in the last years. So I'm not sure who we'll get.
I'm wondering, we have Rihan, Tanya, Emily, Katie, Madeline, if you have any questions or things that you want to share your thoughts. This is really about creating like a dialogue about the topic of creating this connection of refugees with nature using youth media.
Yeah, does anyone else who is muted or has their screens dark, would you like to share some of your thoughts? I would love your feedback. I'd love if you have a critical thoughts. That's probably the most useful. Or a lot of money.
Tanya.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you for this interesting presentation and for this very ambitious project. I really enjoyed. I have a question for you because I'm not sure if I got it quite correct, so that's why I'm asking this. As I understood, you're going to plan to have this intervention for these refugees as a solution to respond to the problem, the psychosocial issues that you have identified in your survey. Am I right? Like the sense of
yeah.
or belonging through this
Yeah.
participatory design in nature and through this filmmaking.
I wouldn't like, maybe this is just rhetoric, but I wouldn't call it a solution, but I would, because it's just a 1 week.
Like as an intervention to test.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's a research intervention.
Okay, so then I'm thinking if you're planning for it to be an intervention, then maybe you need to assess if this intervention is actually effective or not, or maybe at the end of your project, after this unique experience in nature through filmmaking and participation methods, maybe you also need to think about how effective it was, you know, in terms of the problems that at first you identified. So maybe a pre-test, post-test design is also a good thing to consider to see how effective it was.
Definitely. It's kind of hard. Maybe you have some ideas. Like I always see these kinds of things like, well, how did you feel before? How did you feel after? Did you feel this was effective? And usually people who had a good time, they're like, yes, it was very nice. You know, thank you. They came to a camp for free. So hopefully, as long as nothing goes wrong, you know, they like it. But to really assess effectiveness of something that's at such a deep level, especially in such a short time, I mean, I'll look for what's been done before in terms of like you know, assessment methods. But if you have any, do you have any specific ideas? Or you're just suggesting to do it? Because then I totally agree with you. Definitely.
Yeah, well, you need to be really specific in terms of the objective that you're going to assess. For instance, if it is the media literacy, let's say media literacy skills, then we have well-developed questionnaires
That's true.
you can use. So it depends on which skills or dimension you are going actually to enhance. Then you can probably find well-developed questionnaires or skills already in the literature, which can be used as an assessment tool.
Yeah, that's a good point. The technical skills can easily be assessed. Maybe we can even have a little, you know, quiz at the end. But it might be harder to assess. Do you have an enhanced sense of belonging?
But that's where interviews can be helpful. It can be for the movie or have them do a reflection in different times, even at the end of each night. And then later on, it's a content analysis and it's a whole, you know, the analysis might take time, but I'm a qualitative researcher. So I would prefer, you know, to have them interviewed than to do a survey, although survey that has been, you know, validated might be helpful to showcase like numbers.
Yeah, thanks, Tanya. Appreciate that. Definitely need to do that.
Yeah, I think those are all great suggestions. I would also, if it's possible, identify maybe a smaller number of the participants prior to the workshop beginning, who would be willing to kind of maybe go above and beyond what some of the other participants are doing in terms of cataloging or documenting what they're doing, whether it's through surveys or self-recorded video interviews. I imagine that most or all of the participants will have their own, you know, smartphone that they can use to self-record. That's oftentimes a great way to collect information, where you would provide them with the questions, kind of like an assignment each day, like you had mentioned, Yanti. And at some point, you know, during the day, they have to record themselves answering the questions and then send it on at the end of the workshop, kind of thing. I would also suggest, if you have the capacity to do it, follow up with maybe some of these folks that you've identified, after the workshop is finished, maybe 2 weeks after, maybe 6 months after, depending on how long it would take. Because I think obviously you can't really define belonging and mean something different to each person, and you're not really going to be able to qualitatively assess how much more, how much less of a sense of belonging people feel after having gone through this. But I think a great way to kind of engage that would be to find out from them much further down the road. How did this experience affect you? Did it have any change in the way you think about this or you think about that? And I think that might be really challenging to get all of the participants to agree onto, because everyone has their own lives. But if you're able to identify a couple of people that could maybe receive a stipend or whatever, then yeah, I think that would be really valuable.
One
Yeah, actually, yeah.
that I've seen people using with digital ethnography is to share like a WhatsApp group. I know it's not so much an American kind of practice, but abroad very much, and for sure with connecting with different family members. So you can create a WhatsApp group in the beginning of the camp or even before.
I like that.
Start cultivating it. And so after that, you have that group. And so it's not too difficult to reach out. And whoever disengaged, but those who are engaged would answer questions or something in 1 month, 6 months, and maybe something will happen with this group that has its own value to research.
And I could ask everyone maybe at the end of every day, like, please post a reflection in the WhatsApp group, or please post a favorite picture of the day that you took on your own, or could everyone spend 10 minutes after breakfast, writing one sentence about what they hope to get from this day ahead, and then I have all of that information later. I really like that idea. And so it's very easy to organize, because I find some things to be quite bulky when everyone has to send all their different attachments. So that's a really great idea. And I was going to say to respond to what you were saying as well, Tom, that this is so I've been presenting my project as much as I can, and there's one group in Norway in Oslo called NKVTS, the Norwegian Center for Trauma and Violence Studies, and they have a migration team, and after many discussions, they decided to include this project as part of a grant that they submitted to the city of Oslo to address something called externalization, which is like basically there's a lot of gang violence and a lack of social participation for youth with immigrant background in Oslo, and they have found that traditional research methods weren't helping them understand why. So there's a specific grant looking for alternative research methods to explore this issue. So they included my project. We designed together I proposed like an extended year-long version of it, and that this would be a 1-week pilot. And if that gets granted, they will know by March. Then that includes a job for me to lead that extension. And so in discussing like what you said, like you might not know right away after a week, but the opportunity of something like that, extending the project, would provide a lot more opportunity to explore the longer term effects and a continued effect. So I really hope that gets funded.
This all sounds great. I hope you get that funding too. That really, really sounds awesome. And yeah, the thing I love about the WhatsApp group that Yanti mentioned too is they can kind of continue that afterwards on their own, and you'll just see where they take it in establishing friendships and connections. And then the other piece is, when you all are on this 1 week out in nature, it'll be beautiful and amazing, and all the films will be in that beautiful, amazing nature. But through the WhatsApp, you might get some imagery from their everyday lives that you'll see this whole other side of how they're experiencing belonging in their everyday context, which might be much more urban or could be suburban. You don't know what you'll get. But I think that there's a lot of potential for further, I think, as Yanti said, research possibilities there, that you might get a little mini film over WhatsApp or a photo and be like, this is the next direction of the research through this one portal. So I love it.
I like that.
If, with permission, you can, and again, you need to consent for it, follow them on Instagram, for example. or TikTok, because then what I'm thinking, they're not going to post those things so much on the WhatsApp group unless we cultivate that. We could, but they might more. It would be interesting to see what they share with the world from the experience. Like, are they sharing, like Tom was saying, with skills? Like, what's the technical skills they're sharing? Like, suddenly you see something of photography that they're doing with like perspective, or like something like from nature on their Instagram, or suddenly they're starting to share video content that you can see that there is camera movement or more kind of understanding of framing there. So, but concepts also of belonging, and kind of they're coming back from a rural place to an urban place, how their understanding of documenting, like living in Oslo after being like for a week, like in the woods, like how is that changing also? So yeah, there's a whole like digital ethnography, as I was saying, there's a whole kind of new scholarship in the last 20 years on that. Started at Rutgers University. Really interesting work there.
Yeah, these are great suggestions. If we could just, does anyone else who didn't get to talk have any ideas or any thoughts or any critiques? Just looking at the list of names. No, that's okay. Yeah, these are really good suggestions. I appreciate that. I mean, it's amazing how many times I can present this and each time leave with something new. So that's really, really useful.
So first of all, thank you, Larisa, for sharing it and being the first one in our series. I want to take advantage of Tom being here. Could you talk for a minute about what you're going to present next month for the second webinar in the series of youth media?
Absolutely. Well, after listening to Larisa's presentation, I'm probably going to rethink a few things, but essentially, because you formatted it so wonderfully, essentially, I'm going to be presenting on a program that I've been running for the last 5 years called Film Building. It's an educational initiative that revolves around discovery-based filmmaking, and more specifically, getting people from different cultural backgrounds, people across distances and differences to come together and create short films. So it looks a lot at identity, exploration of certain environments, and really leveraging the available technology that we have today. So rather than, how should I put it, kind of training students how to produce films that we're kind of used to seeing, it's more about kind of helping people realize that with a smartphone, with editing software that you can access really, really easily, with different collaborative techniques, you can produce something that's really meaningful and authentic and original. So yeah.
Thanks. And just verbally to say, to answer Katrina's question, so this is also part of our effort to revive the Youth Media Reporter and to have a platform to share all this work that is related to teaching and practicing youth media. So we're starting this. It's like in the making, but I'm very excited. Larisa, thank you so much for starting us with a very, very unique, inspiring project that we're going to keep talking about it and sharing with you how the progress goes. So any concluding thoughts, Larisa, before we end?
No, I appreciate your time. I wanted to know, Tom, when is your presentation? Do you have a date yet?
Yes, I'm going to put it, it's on March 12th. I'm going to put
Okay, perfect.
the link here for people who want to register. Everybody is welcome.
I already have questions for you, but I'll wait till March 12th.
Okay.
Okay. Thanks
Thank you
so much, everyone.
everybody.
Thank you. Bye.